I think we need to have a system that encourages health, fit, things like diet and exercise. You could eliminate over half the prescriptions that are being given out in this country. Yeah. I don't think a doctor should give you a pill for a condition, if it's, for example, type 2 diabetes or high cholesterol or high blood pressure, until he says, you know what, go follow this exercise and diet protocol, then come back to me. Instead, they say, here's a prescription, and you can ask them, well, what kind of effect would diet and exercise have? And like, well, I don't really know. That's not what I do. I feel like this is something that a lot of people discuss and aren't able to put a fine point on. Okay, obviously the left is upset with the American healthcare system. And they're upset because they think it needs more government control. But I also believe most people think that there's a problem. Here's something else. I don't know about you. I'm pro-Western medicine to a degree, right? If I get really sick, I don't want to be, chewing on Kushtanga root. So I think there's a balance. You have these patchouli hippies who believe in nothing but alternative medicine, and rather than like going through chemo or something, they're like, I'll use a cream. And I think that's too extreme. And then you have some other people right now, like Fauci and like the media, who are basically doing the bidding for pharmaceutical companies. Let me frame it this way. I think most Americans, and you can tell me if this is how you feel about it. I think it's been something that hasn't been worded very effectively. In our country, we look at drugs and pharmaceuticals, and I'm going to give you some stats here to substantiate my point. We look at drugs and pharmaceuticals as the primary intervention, and we look at what matters most, health, fitness, diet, as ironically supplementary. Even the term supplements. Now, I'll do a whole other segment on the supplement industry and the scams that are taking place there. I think it should be the exact opposite. I think we need to have a system that encourages health, fit, things like diet and exercise. You could eliminate over half the prescriptions that are being given out in this country. I don't think a doctor should give you a pill for a condition, if it's, for example, type 2 diabetes or high cholesterol or high blood pressure, until he says, you know what, go follow this exercise and diet protocol, then come back to me. Instead, they say, here's a prescription, and you can ask them, well, what kind of effect would diet and exercise have? And like, well, I don't really know. That's not what I do. I think the way we fix it is drugs are supplementary, and health and overall wellness needs to be primary and needs to be encouraged and needs to be incentivized by the healthcare industry more so than dancing vaccines on Colbert. This is where we say, hey, can we find common ground, and we need a system that focuses on overall health? Well, you would think so, except here's the Association of American Medical Colleges saying that the system is broken because, and we think common ground? No, racism.
So, Philip, there's a lot more to health than doctors and hospitals. What are some of the social determinants of health?
That's a great question. So we've spent, I think, the last 10 years or so focused this health conversation on issues of healthcare, right? Insurance coverage, drug pricing, access, hugely important issues. But the science tells us that all of that work that happens in a doctor's office accounts for about 20% of what makes you healthy, of what makes your communities healthy, of what makes the nation healthy. And the other 80%
choose where to start your beard?
Has to do with the conditions where we live, and the social conditions, the community level factors. Let me give you an example. So a patient goes to a doctor. The patient has diabetes. Doctor says, take your medicine, get some exercise, and eat more healthfully. So great. That's that 20%, the clinical care.
But some commentators say medical schools should stick to the science, basic science, and should not teach social justice issues. Do you each agree with that?
Listen,
I could not disagree more with that. I think it's a false dichotomy. It's both. Of course, we want our physicians to be competent and grounded in science, of course, and skilled.
And the phrase.
But at the same time, again, their health care is provided in a context. Weird. And if the care team, it's not just physicians, it's physicians and nurses, community health workers, social workers. If that care team isn't providing care, understanding the lived experience of their patients, the health care won't work like it could.
That's silly, and you're silly for saying it. Of course, I should take that, but their lived experiences. No. Science, and especially health, is about numbers on a page. It's about numbers on a page. It's about numbers on a scale. It is something that is measurable, and it is something that is undeniable, regardless of the lived experience. Hey, maybe, remember when they used to complain about food deserts?
Yeah.
They still try and complain. There's still funding for food deserts when there's Amazon Prime groceries and there is no food desert. As a matter of fact, I think the only food deserts that might exist in this country is where white rural farmers live in places like Wyoming. It's not Spanish Harlem. Now, they, after COVID, doubled down.
So if anything, the presence of the pandemic steeled our resolve to deal with these problems. We need to make diversity, equity, and inclusion
steeled,
critical
like hardened.
to our forward motion to solve
Alloyed,
many of our problems. For two reasons.
Blue-steeled.
One is that it's the right thing to do, a social justice reason. And the second reason is diverse teams, diverse groups of people, it's been shown convincingly by research, make better decisions.
When they're all the same.
They bring a broader range of perspectives to a problem.
Okay, here's the thing. That's the bait and switch. A broader range of perspectives. Hey, my perspective is that people need a diet next. No! We need some black ladies, yo. You need people of different colors. How about people of different ideological persuasion?
Ah.
Yeah. Why are social workers supposed to be cops and doctors?
Yeah, I have no idea.
I can't get that out of my head.
We're supposed to call a social worker if someone is raping my neighbor and call a social worker if I have a coronary heart attack. And this all leads to what? Folks being built like the Kool-Aid guy chastising healthy people.
Governor, where's your mask?
We're all making choices today.
Yeah, look around you, Governor. You're in Alexandria.
Yeah.
Read the room, buddy.
Yeah, she busted through a brick wall just to make that point.
Yeah. Oh, no.
Oh, no.
Wear a mask. Bam.
Yeah. Everyone's a hypocrite. You've heard me say this before. Everyone is a hypocrite. You can find plenty of examples of me being a hypocrite. For example, I'm a Christian. Sometimes I use bad language. And by that, I mean very often. Everyone is a hypocrite. They fall short. And the same thing, we have this same problem that you just saw there taking place in our office.
So no one's going to wear a mask? Am I the only person who cares about health in this whole building? I'm the only person. It's called a mask, guys. It's for your face. It protects us all from being sick. Do you want to be sick and die? Just wear. Why is it so hard? See? You made me sick. It's blood again. It's blood again. Because of you guys. I'm going to have more of this pizza. Is that cool?
I don't know why we hired Bruce Valanche.
That's true.
You really should fire him.
No.
We need a salad bar out there.
Hollywood Squares is very 90s. So let me get, again, I am not anti-medication, anti-prescriptions. I have had to, look, when I had 3 titanium rods bolted to my rib cage, Michael, I was very grateful for pharmaceutical interventions. Do not get me wrong. But I think people can believe that and also understand that we are an over-medicated society here in the United States. So let me give you some stats really quickly. All references available at loudwithcrowder.com. We have 6.3 trillion prescriptions. They were prescribed in 2020 alone. That's the last year we can find the accurate numbers. The annual prescription increase is rising 4 times faster than the actual population growth. Over half of all adults have taken a prescription drug in the previous 30 days. Okay.
Jeez.
Now, that in a vacuum, you just go, okay, what does that really mean? People need prescriptions. I understand that. But let's compare it to, according to the CDC, the number of people who are getting enough exercise according to CDC guidelines. And I don't know if we'll get in trouble for quoting the CDC. 23% of adults, 26% of high school students. So over half of all Americans are taking some kind of a prescription. And by the way, the most popular prescriptions in this country, or some of the most popular prescriptions, certainly are heart medications, blood pressure medications, cholesterol medications. But less than a quarter are getting adequate exercise. And by the way, if you actually look at the guidelines, adequate exercise is not what you think it is. You don't have to be an Instagram ass model. It's going for a walk like 30 minutes a day, 5 times a week.
Wow.
It's not that severe.
I still can't do it. I never close the rings on my watch.
And this is the problem. You can't say trust the science. You can't say trust the science while also saying we need to celebrate all body types and fat pride and fat is healthy. Okay, you know what? Let me tell you exactly why it's not. Sure, you might find some exceptions. You might find some Samoan guy with perfect cholesterol because, his great-grandfather was throwing someone off a cliff because they weren't native. But as a general rule, obese individuals, look, they're 4 times more likely to develop type 2 diabetes. That increases heart disease by 2 to 4 times. Obese individuals, this is something we couldn't 3 times more likely to be hospitalized or die from COVID. 3 times more likely. But guess what? If we came on here and if someone said, hey, what's the most effective thing you could do for COVID? Right? Even now with Omicron, right? We all acknowledge the vaccines don't work that well with Omicron. We acknowledge that.
Yeah.
And they just pulled antibodies, the monoclonal antibody treatments in Florida. I believe it was in Florida. They just pulled it as a treatment because they're saying it's not working against Omicron. Okay, so at least now we can say this safely. We're at a point where the interventions don't work that well. Can we say now, hey, the single most effective thing you can do to avoid COVID, particularly hospitalization or death, is lose weight and exercise? 3 times.
Yeah. The most effective thing that you can do to not die from, insert anything you want.
Insert anything here, but 3 times more likely to be hospitalized or die from COVID.
Exactly.
And the problem is the pharmaceutical companies, and look, and I'm not saying that there is no use in the pharmaceutical companies. Some great things, some great drugs we need. I get that.
For sure.
However, there was a time where everyone was being lumped in, and by time, I mean today, where people are being lumped in with crazy hippies who are simply telling you to rub some kind of essential oil salve on your melanoma to fix it. We've been lumped in the same category when we say, look, more important than any vaccine, more important than any drug, more important than anything else you can do if you are worried about COVID is diet, exercise, get healthier. It will have we would save more lives if doctors focused on that. It wouldn't even be comparable.
Yeah.
You are talking about you could reduce the likelihood of hospitalization and death by 3 times. Instead, you get banned. When you think science is immune to the influence of not just Facebook, Twitter, but, for example, communist regime run TikTok. You have scientists and doctors who are actually influenced by social media influencers. Why? Because if they get on the right platform and they espouse the right view, they know that they can get their name out there. You see it all the time. You see psychologists who are trying to sell books and they're trying to sell podcasts. You see doctors all the time on television giving bogus health advice because they know they can have the right people on as guests. So case in point, right now, here's Dr. Lindo Bacon. Yes. A leader in the
6 degrees.
A leader in the health at every size movement here.
It's not fat that plays a strong role.
Rachel Dratch.
The real issue in health has more to do with fat stigma. For example, if you tell somebody that they're fat and ugly and that they're going to get sick, well, that's certainly going to set up pretty stressful conditions for them, and it is much more likely that they are going to get sick. And we're even able to trace all of these pathways. We can see in science the ways in which increased stigma increases a cortisol response in your body that then does damage and increases the tendency towards insulin resistance and diabetes. So we can map all of this stuff out physiologically, and we can see the ways in which fat stigma causes some of the disease problems that we tend to blame on the weight itself.
Okay, first off, I don't know what the stigma is on Slappy from Night of the Living Dummy Goosebumps acting as a doctor, but I think it needs to be a little more.
Oh, man.
It's a shocking thing.
And everything that guy, that lady just said, that dummy just said is bullshit, okay? And I understand what she's trying to say, and this is the problem with medical speak when she's going, oh, you know what, I'm an activist. You know, if you make fun of someone who's fat, that can make them stressed, and that can make them release more cortisol, and that could hamper immune function, that could increase insulin resistance. Sure, that's absolutely true. You know what could also create insulin resistance? Being morbidly obese. Now, let me give you a couple other things here that, again, if we're going to look to find common ground, benefits of a healthy lifestyle. All right, okay. Look, this should seem self-explanatory, but apparently someone didn't get the memo to these doctors. You have better cardiac function, even if you already have heart problems, even if you already have heart disease. If you start exercising now, you can actually still improve your heart function. You can actually still improve your health outcomes. You'll have more actual and more quantity and better functioning mitochondria, reversing type 2 diabetes.
There we go.
All-cause mortality becomes the lowest when you improve things like muscle mass, cardiorespiratory fitness, your leg strength, walking speed, grip strength. And look, let me tell you this. I will give you a perfect example, okay? After surgery, if you guys went to my Instagram, you saw I was significantly heavier, okay? And a big part of it came because of medications, fluid retention. You know, I had the emergency where I think I tore something. And
internal bleeding.
Internal bleeding, all of that.
Call it that.
But that being said, for a while, I could not move at all. And I won't lie. I was a little bit depressed because I couldn't move, and I almost died. So I started eating like crap, and I ballooned up about 35 pounds. And my cholesterol, I'd never had a problem with it before. My cholesterol was bad. Well, guess what? I can show you now before and after from this summer to now, where it went from bad to better than perfect. Okay, I had a 278 or 270, my cholesterol, went down to 203, but my HDL is like 60 something, so my risk ratio is 2.23. Went from being a problem to not being a problem at all. Wow. No drugs at all. No drugs whatsoever, just getting back out, getting active. I still have some ways to go, but I can tell you it works. And by the way, my doctor is always like, that's what you got to do. At a certain point, you're just going to have to start moving. It's not easy. Certainly not. It certainly was not easy. The last thing that I wanted to do after having titanium rods bolted to my chest and recovering without the use of opioids, by the way, was go out and walk the dog, was get in the gym and move a weight. It's easy when you feel bad, when you're feeling crappy, to eat like crap. And I did that for a few weeks, and I said, well, you know what? Either I've got to get a handle on this or it's going to be a problem. And you know what? If I didn't have great doctors, like the ones at Mayo, they have the Mayo diet. That's what's great about Mayo. They have all of the experts in one room. They communicate. They treat the body as one unit. Yeah. Most doctors, you go, they go, yeah, I'm a cardiologist. No, your heart is okay. And then they go, oh, you're a thoracic surgeon. They go, oh, you know what, your sternum's bent. I had to go to Mayo where they go, your sternum's going into your heart and your lung. And this is something they wouldn't have known because they look at the body as an individual unit and then look at it to write a prescription. As opposed to saying, look, we know overall improve your meat vehicle. Diet, right? Yep. Exercise. Okay, there are about the amount of supplements that work, you can count on one hand, to be clear, but there are some supplements out there that are useful. And we should see prescription intervention and drugs as secondary, as supplementary, not as primary. If we could all find some common ground on that, and that fat pride is silly and dangerous, then maybe we could actually make some progress.
Watch Louder with Crowder live, Monday through Thursday, 10 a.m. Eastern.